One of the funniest and sharpest series to ever air on television was Arrested Development, lasting a disappointingly short 3 seasons on the Fox network, until it was renewed many years later on Netflix. Telling the story of the Blue family and their real estate business, creator Mitch Hurwitz and his team of directors and writers had the impressive ability of fitting so many jokes within the dialogue, the background, and elsewhere on the show. Arrested Development was a show especially held by DVDs, as you're rewarded by repeat viewings, so Netflix was the logical place to continue it. However, there was a notable difference in quality between the years apart seasons, and I'm going to explore that in this comparison. When Arrested Development began airing on Fox, it was particularly noted for how it was able to divide the multiple characters in each 22-minute episode. The pilot alone gives just the right amount of information to understand who the Blues are and the financial predicament they now find themselves in. While the narration helps guide us along, the show is careful not to drown the audience in frequent exposition. That the narrator was almost a character himself, humorously commenting on the action, gave a further layer of humor. Watching Gob get frustrated with a magic trick, or George Sr. try to skim himself out of a situation is enough to provide the necessary character development. The interactions between the cast were also key in shaping this family. Some hilarious gags have been born out of Michael's befuddled reactions to his family's remarks, as well as running jokes like their inability to do a chicken taunt. It's truly a credit to casting director Marcia DeBonis that the series was able to find the perfect actors for their roles. While Mitch Hurwitz was the creator and he deserves most of the credit for Arrested Development, it's also worth pointing out Joe and Anthony Russo's direction of several episodes. With their direction of the pilot, they quickly established the style and flow of the show, and you see that influence running through those first 3 seasons. If you wondered how Avengers Endgame was able to make its 3 hours run by, while giving proper attention to all the characters, you can trace it back to their stint on Arrested Development. The 22-minute episode length was also an important element of the show. Due to Hurwitz being restricted to the standard television sitcom runtime, he was required to go from scene to scene quickly, thus preventing gags from running too long. That gave the series a snappiness, and yet the writers were impressively able to fill scenes with a lot of gags. Even flashbacks were done to brilliant comedic effect, often used as a punchline to a line or gag. There was also a meta element running through the show that commented on Fox's treatment of the series. One of the best is the writer's response to being told to include Burger King product placement, resulting in an over-the-top scene that calls immediate attention to this. The 3rd season, when the producers realized the show is definitely getting cancelled, led to multiple jokes that made mention of this. The episode SOBs was essentially one long meta-gag about how they had trouble attracting viewers and pleading for someone to renew them. When Arrested Development was cancelled, the fans it had bemoaned the loss and cursed Fox for treating it so poorly. Rumors surfaced of a potential movie being made, fueled by the last line in the series finale, and this went on for many, many years. Finally, Netflix agreed to produce and stream a 4th season, but Hurwitz found himself with a major problem. Since the show's cancellation, the actors' stars had risen, and they became very much in demand for movies and other television series. Jason Bateman had a successful movie career. Tony Hale, David Cross, and Noir Arnett had starring roles in other television shows. Michael Cera and Alia Shawkat were doing a lot of independent films, and so forth. It would require a lot of schedule shuffling to get everyone together again. So instead, Hurwitz decided to devote episodes to specific characters, which was not necessarily a bad idea. After all, the show itself would often have B and C plots devoted to characters, like Tobias's frequent failed attempts to jumpstart his acting career, or George Michael dealing with his feelings for Maybe. There's just one big problem, and that's that part of the humor of Arrested Development came from the various interactions between the family members, and with the 4th season, we would see little variety in which characters would share screen time with each other. And because episodes would be devoted to a specific character, you had better enjoy their storyline, or you're in for a long ride. George Michael dealing with Michael crashing in his college dorm and wanting him out there, that's kind of amusing. But George Sr. spending an entire episode attempting to build a border wall, I found that whole plotline boring. Michael trying to get a movie made about his family is a funny story, mainly owed to having Ron Howard play himself, and he's a good sport. Maybe's penchant for scheming continues to be funny, and she gets some of the funnier lines in the show. Similarly, Tobias's continued failed attempt to be an actor provides the usual amusing antics, although his shared screen time with Lindsay is disappointingly small. Lucille gets one of the least interesting plot lines, which is a shame. The lack of availability plaguing the 4th season does not only affect the main actors. Some of the guest actors are green-screened in, and it's rather obvious. This disrupts the comedic timing and back and forth between the actors. Speaking of timing, let's talk about the runtime of these episodes. Netflix does not restrict their showrunners to a specific runtime, like network television. So, Hurwitz is not required to restrict the episode length to 22 minutes. However, because of this lack of restriction, scenes can go on far longer than needed, and that affects the jokes. There's a scene where Buster inhales and then exhales Lucille's cigarette smoke, and it seems like it will never end. If the 4th season was still on Fox, this scene would have been a quick 15-second flashback. On Netflix, it goes on for around a minute. The quick timing and snappy editing of the Fox seasons are almost non-existent in the Netflix seasons, and that makes them a slog to get through. 5 years after the 4th season, Hurwitz decided to re-edit the episodes to be closer to how they might have been in the Fox years. They're a little better, but the cast availability problem remains, and we still have to sit through the boring George Sr. and Lucille arcs. Ron Howard also recorded new narration for Season 4, but that's created a new issue where episodes seem to consist of wall-to-wall narration, and it's largely unnecessary most of the time. When it came time to make the 5th season, most of the cast was available this time, and so we got to see more of the characters interact. However, the result was still a mixed bag. Maeby does have the best storyline when she pretends to be an elderly woman so she can live in a retirement community. There is an attempt to tie the Bluths to the current presidential administration, which is in line with the Fox seasons, which were obvious products of the Bush era. However, it's otherwise surface-level satire. While Tobias' story was somewhat amusing in the 4th season, his subplots now grind the episodes to a halt whenever he appears. The main reason for this is the lack of Lindsay. Portia de Rossi has retired from acting, so she only appears in a few episodes of the 5th season. Lindsay is given a bit of focus for her first few appearances, and then she disappears. That Tobias-Lindsay dynamic was a major element of the Fox years, but in the Netflix years he's been paired up with a fellow failed actor and his long-lost son, and it's not nearly as funny or endearing. I'm also mixed on George Michael's characterization in the 5th season. Characters are obviously meant to evolve, and I understand the whole idea is that every Bluth eventually succumbs to the same selfish tendencies, but I think they went a little too far in making him unlikable. Arrested Development has long gotten humor out of characters not properly talking to each other, but this was taken to a major extreme with George Michael's fake app storyline. The problem of episodes running too long continues here. Most are around 30 minutes, while the final episode totals 48 minutes. Again, there's a lack of flow in the scene transitions, sequences run for far too long, and the pacing is really off. One positive is that in typical Arrested Development fashion, there are some twists that throw the family for a loop, and that adds an element sure to affect rewatches of the series. Otherwise, I just find the Netflix seasons to be a slog to sit through, and believe me, I hate being so negative towards the new seasons. Mitch Hurwitz is an extremely talented writer with a wicked and smart sense of humor, and he definitely knows these characters inside and out. Maybe it's a case of me holding the original episodes so dear. I consider the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development to be perfect television. The scripts are filled to the brim with jokes that hit on multiple levels, the interplay between the characters is perfectly handled, the episodes are paced extraordinarily well, and even the camera angles have a lot of clever little touches to them. I could watch the Fox seasons many times and never grow tired of them. There are individual moments I remember and chuckle to myself, and the use of running jokes and callbacks is brilliant. I wish I could feel the same enthusiasm for the Netflix years, but they just lack that certain magic. Oh well, there's always money in the banana stand. I'll see you next time.